Leighton Holdings stock is rocketing on the ASX market in Sydney, Australia today. This is the #1 civil contractor down under, predicting profits will ricochet, boomerang. That's right, we're talking Australia here. After declining for the first time in years, profits dropped something like 28% in the fiscal year. They wrote down some assets and canceled some projects because of the recessionary time. Still, the company says profits will bounce. In the last 18 months were a bump in the minerals demand cycle. Right now, look at that stock. Ahead, 6.5 at 34 and change. Good for a $2 pop. Joining us from Sydney today is Wal King, the Chief Executive Officer of Leighton Holdings, on the show today. Wal, market really likes the language. They're not really focusing on the past. They're focusing on the future. In hindsight, do you think maybe you overdrove expectations at all with your language?
I don't believe so. I think what we've seen in the last 6 months is stabilisation. Last year, when the big economic earthquake happened, any sorts of forecasting was rather difficult. So there was a lot of gloom around at the end of last year and projects being stopped, etc. And I think there was generally a feeling that our work levels couldn't be sustained. But the big takeaway is that the uncompleted work we have is $37 billion, which is a near record. And since the close at 30th of June, work levels, we've probably picked up another several $1 billion worth of work.
Do you are you sure? Can you say with 100% conviction this is the bottom of the cycle, given the pickup that we've been seeing in the mining space?
Well, no one can say with 100% anything, but I think it's a contrasting situation to the end of last year or early this year, where was absolute doom and gloom in all respects. Then stabilisation, and we have a stabilised position, and we're now seeing some early signs of increased demand. And in terms of our own position, last year we shifted about 1 billion cubic metres of material, and we're predicting this year that we'll predict 1.1 billion cubic metres of material. So everything going forward at this point looks like stable with early signs of recovery.
Within the contract mining space, where do you think the really, I don't know how you call it, bright sparks are? Are there parts that look perhaps healthier, are you more optimistic about than some of the other components?
Well, I think first of all you have to look at the mines themselves and who are the low-cost producers. Obviously, in the big run-up a couple of years ago, marginal mines came on the market that probably never should have opened. But the trends are up, the volume trends are up, our prices have stabilised. So I think it is across the spectrum in terms of coal, both steaming and coking, iron ore and other minerals. But there's the low-cost producers in places like Indonesia and Mongolia that will come on very strongly.
What's going on in Abu Dhabi? Because that's been an expansion project of note for you recently, and in particular, I'm referring, of course, to the Al Habtoor unit. Any update on what's going on there? I understand that the UAE has seen a very marked slowdown as well. That you have a certain, even more exponential effect going on in that part of the world.
Well, it's been very fashionable to talk about Dubai being the end of the world, but Dubai is not the Middle East. Dubai is part of the Middle East, and there's no doubt that Dubai has a lot of issues with the property bubble there. But places like Abu Dhabi are very sound, and there's many big projects coming forward in Abu Dhabi, and places like Qatar and Kuwait. But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding that Dubai has its problems, but Dubai is not the total Middle East. And in fact, we're seeing more projects. In Abu Dhabi at the moment, we're bidding something like $9 billion worth of projects. So in this current recovery, I think what you have to get your mind around, the range of opportunities will be different. We had that abrupt earthquake last year, and the new opportunities will emerge. The opportunities will be different in scale and nature and geographic location. So what we're seeing is reasonable opportunities right across the board.
Okay. What's your geographic footprint look like right now? I see your signs all over the place here in Hong Kong, and you do a lot of partnerships here. Macau, interesting. After the mothballing of so many concrete blocks, they're starting to sort of boogie and shake again. They're talking about doing these massive IPOs, and the casino operators are bouncing back. And Mongolia is also getting more interesting for you as well. What's going on? Like, how much traction are you gaining in a place like Macau with the bounce back that seems to be stirring?
Well, nothing at this point in time. We're still finishing off the City of Dreams. In itself was a huge project, and we're finishing off a new Winds Diamond Tower. And I think we just need then to be fairly cautious about the future development. Macau, like a lot of places, had an enormous growth spurt, and a lot depends on what's happening with visitors from China and elsewhere. In Mongolia, we're seeing the mining industry open up, and Mongolia has fantastic resources, and we believe we're well positioned to help the Mongolian people develop. We're not in competition. We're a contract miner. We're not in the ownership business. So we can assist the Mongolian people to develop their resources.
Okay, Wal, I want you to say hi to my friend Jing Ulrich, who's been listening in on our conversation. Jing.
Well, it's interesting to hear your comments just now about Mongolia. Obviously, China is really on the doorstep of Mongolia with such mineral resources up north, you know, copper, gold, and coal. I'm interested in hearing about your expansion plans in Mongolia and potentially perhaps even into China.
Well, I don't think into China. I mean, China has many companies there that operate. Mongolia is particularly interesting, and it's a rather small country in terms of population. We have the necessary skills and resources to develop their mining industry, and I'm sure a lot of the products, or most of the products, will be sold into China.
Wal, any predictions on what kind of new greenfield projects you might be involved in the future? What are we be talking about in terms of new groundbreakings? Want to give us some sort of thoughts on that before we let you go?
Well, the company has a huge geographic footprint right across Asia, across China, India, and into the Middle East. The area that we're seeing, most interest in is the oil and gas business. In Australia, there is something like $150 billion worth of gas projects planned, and that's going to be really a big thing over the next few years. Offshore oil and gas that we're involved in presents opportunities in a sort of a global sense, not that we go completely global, but across Asia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, across into the Middle East, Iraq, there's lots of opportunities there. Our position is that we're not short of projects, and we just have to be careful that we keep the projects that we take on in equilibrium with the capability and capacity of the company to deliver.
All right. Wal, great talking to you. Wal King, Leighton Holdings.